The spring morning in Boston was, as usual, covered with gray clouds. Jennifer Wilson gazed out the window, remembering how long she had dreaded this day. Her sister Allison's engagement party. She took a deep breath and stood in front of the mirror. Jennifer worked as a child psychologist at a small clinic in downtown Boston. Her gentle voice and warm smile had a remarkable ability to open the hearts of traumatized children. She was well respected by her colleagues, and her appointment schedule was always full. However, once she stepped outside her workplace, Jennifer became a different person, losing her confidence, especially in front of her family. "Is this good enough?" Jennifer murmured quietly as she put on yet another outfit from her closet. The navy blue dress beautifully accentuated her skin tone, but when she looked at her figure, the familiar anxiety washed over her. Since childhood, she had been labeled as fat by her family. Jennifer's parents, Robert and Martha Wilson, ran a real estate company in an affluent area outside Boston. Their company, Wilson Properties, was known as one of the premier luxury property businesses in Massachusetts. And to maintain that image, they were obsessed with projecting the perfect family image to others. "Jenny, just think how lovely you'd be if you lost a little weight." This was something her mother had repeated to Jennifer since her teenage years. Even on the day she graduated from college, her mother's first words were not to celebrate her academic success but to express concern about how she looked in her graduation photos. In contrast, her sister Allison was the perfect daughter in her parents' eyes. She had been the captain of the cheerleading team in high school, a popular sorority member in college, and had just gotten engaged to Jason Bradley, a successful IT entrepreneur. Photos of Allison occupied most of the picture frames that adorned the walls of the Wilson family living room. "Should I put on a bit more makeup?" Jennifer paused in front of the mirror, studying her face. Her soft brown eyes and gentle smile were features that many of her patients described as comforting. But today, she could see shadows of anxiety in those eyes. The phone rang, and Jennifer turned around, slightly startled. Seeing the name on the screen, she couldn't help but smile. Grandma Eleanor. When she answered the phone, a warm, familiar voice came through. "Jenny, how are the preparations going? It's a day of celebration, isn't it?" Eleanor was Jennifer's paternal grandmother and her only true ally. Eleanor had always worried about Martha's perfectionism and Robert's cold attitude. "I'm managing, I guess," Jennifer answered honestly. "I want to put on a good face for Allison's sake, but..." "You are wonderful just as you are, Jenny," Eleanor's voice was strong. "I always tell you that, don't I? Your kindness and compassion, those are what truly matter." After the conversation ended, Jennifer felt a little more encouraged. Eleanor had always been on her side since she was a child. While her parents were praising Allison's grades and activities, Eleanor had always admired Jennifer's drawings, stories, and her kind heart. As she got into her car and headed to her parents' suburban home, Jennifer reflected on her childhood. When she turned 10, her mother had prepared a fruit platter instead of a cake for her birthday. At 15, her father had humiliated her about her dress size in public. And at the high school prom, Allison and her friends had called her Fat Jenny and made fun of her. Yet even among such memories, Grandma Eleanor's kindness had always been a light. The summer vacations spent at Eleanor's house were Jennifer's happiest memories. There, she could just be herself without worrying about her body shape. Jennifer parked her car in front of her parents' luxurious mansion and took a deep breath. Several expensive cars were already lined up in the garden. Allison's friends and her parents' social circle contacts must have gathered. Before opening the front door, she told herself, "Just for today, may everything go well." When she opened the door, festive music and conversation greeted her. The living room was decorated lavishly and filled with people holding champagne glasses. And in the center of the room stood the perfect couple. Allison, with her shining blonde hair flowing over her shoulders, wore a white dress that accentuated her slim figure. Next to her stood the handsome Jason Bradley, his arm around Allison's waist. When Jennifer entered the room, for a moment, it seemed as if the conversations paused. She felt her heart rate quicken as she tried to maintain the most natural smile possible. "Jennifer. You've finally arrived," her mother Martha approached and gave her a light kiss. However, her eyes were already assessing Jennifer's dress, clearly showing her disapproval. "Everyone's already here. Go say hello to Allison. It's her special day." Jennifer nodded and made her way through the crowd toward Allison and Jason. When her sister's eyes met hers, there was a momentary cold glance, but it quickly changed to a social smile. "Jenny. You came," Allison said in a high-pitched voice. "Jason, this is my sister." Jason politely extended his hand. "Nice to meet you, Jennifer. I've heard about you from Allison. You're a child psychologist, right? That's wonderful work." Jennifer was a bit surprised by his warm greeting. She couldn't imagine what Allison might have said about her, but at least Jason seemed kind. "Thank you. Congratulations on your engagement," she said quietly. Allison laughed lightly. "Thanks. But today is our day, Jenny. Why don't you enjoy yourself a little? There are diet drinks at that table over there." At those words, several people in the room let out small laughs. Jennifer felt her face flush, but she maintained her smile. Today was Allison's day. She couldn't ruin it. Throughout the party, Jennifer stood in a corner of the room, quietly observing the conversations around her. Her father was telling his society friends about Allison and Jason's perfect marriage, while her mother was excitedly discussing Allison's wedding dress. No one approached Jennifer to talk. Eventually, her father clinked his glass to get everyone's attention. "Today is a special day to celebrate our beautiful daughter Allison and her wonderful fiancé, Jason." His speech continued, praising Allison's success, beauty, and the pride she had brought to the family. Not a word was mentioned about Jennifer. "A toast." Her father raised his glass. "To Allison and Jason, wishing them the greatest happiness." As everyone joined in the toast, Jennifer quietly raised her glass. In her heart, there was both a wish for her sister's happiness and the pain of always being pushed into the shadows. Across the room, she could see Grandma Eleanor smiling gently at her. That smile alone gave Jennifer warmth in this cold social setting. She quietly drained her glass and thought about the upcoming preparations for Allison's wedding. Would there be anything she could do for her sister's special day? Or would she again be treated as the unpresentable part of the family? Jennifer looked out the window and took a deep breath. Tomorrow was a new day. She had her patients and her important work helping them. Days like today just had to be endured. At least, that had been Jennifer's way of life until now. 3 months after the engagement party, as Boston's summer was coming to an end, Jennifer was checking her mail while drinking her morning coffee in the kitchen of her apartment. Bills, advertisements, and a birthday card from a colleague. But the item she had been waiting for weeks was not there. Allison's wedding invitation. She unconsciously picked up her cell phone and checked the calendar. Allison had said at the engagement party that the wedding would be in November. It was already mid-September. Normally, invitations would be sent out earlier. "Maybe I'm overthinking this," Jennifer told herself, but she felt anxiety spreading in her chest. Her relationship with her sister was complicated, but she couldn't imagine being excluded from such an important family event. Almost unconsciously, she dialed her mother's number. "Hello, Mom." Jennifer spoke in the brightest voice she could manage. "I just wanted to check something. I haven't received Allison's wedding invitation yet. Is there some problem with the mail?" On the other end of the phone, she sensed Martha's slight hesitation. "Oh, Jenny. I believe Allison said she wanted to speak with you directly. Hasn't she contacted you? Jennifer frowned. No, I haven't heard anything. I see. Martha's voice was strangely cautious. Well, I think she'll contact you soon. She's very busy with the wedding preparations. I'll mention it to her. Even after the conversation ended, Jennifer's anxiety didn't dissipate. There seemed to be something hidden in her mother's words. But she didn't have time to think about it further. Today was a fully booked day. That evening, after finishing work at the clinic, Jennifer's phone rang. Allison's name was displayed on the screen. Jenny, would you like to have tea? Are you free tomorrow? Allison's voice sounded sweeter than usual. The next day, Jennifer was waiting for her sister at a high-end cafe in Back Bay, Boston. When Allison entered, the eyes of the male customers in the cafe turned toward her. Perfect blonde hair, slender figure, and a confident smile, Allison always attracted attention. Sorry I'm a little late, Allison said as she took her seat. I had a long meeting with the wedding planner. It's fine, Jennifer smiled. Wedding preparations must be keeping you busy. Oh, you wouldn't believe it. Allison's eyes sparkled. Dress fittings, venue decorations, menu selection, but it's all wonderful. Mom and Dad have booked a really amazing venue. The conversation continued for a while about the wedding preparations. Jennifer listened quietly, occasionally asking questions and offering to help if needed. Let me know if there's anything I can help with. Like addressing invitations. Allison's expression hardened for a moment. She set down her coffee cup and straightened her posture. Actually, I have something to tell you, her tone changed. I'll be honest. I don't intend to invite you to the wedding. Jennifer couldn't believe her ears. You heard me, right? Allison said coldly. My wedding will be attended by high society people. Jason's family is upper class, and all his friends are successful. I don't want fat people in my photos. Those words brought a stabbing pain to Jennifer's heart. She caught her breath. Allison. I'm your sister. Your family. That doesn't give you the right to ruin my special day, Allison said cruelly. I don't want to see you every time I look at the photos. And I don't want Jason's family to know I have a sister like you. A sister like me. Jennifer's voice trembled. Don't make me say it, Allison didn't hide her irritation. You know what kind of person you are. My wedding has to be perfect. Try to understand. Tears welled up in Jennifer's eyes. She tried desperately to hide them. I understand, she said quietly. It's your special day. Allison briefly showed what might have been guilt, but it quickly disappeared. I'm glad you understand. That's why I didn't send an invitation. Mom and Dad agree. Those words were the final blow. Even her parents. Jennifer silently stood up, took out some bills from her wallet, and placed them on the table. Be happy, Allison. When she left the cafe, tears streamed down her cheeks. She got into her car and, with her forehead resting on the steering wheel, cried quietly. Emotions she had suppressed for so long poured out all at once. When she got home, she called her parents. Her father answered. Dad, I talked to Allison. Is it true that I'm not invited to the wedding? On the other end of the phone, Robert sighed deeply. Jennifer, try to understand Allison's feelings. This is her important day. You should respect her wishes. But, Dad. I'm family. Of course. But sometimes, even family members need to keep their distance. The phone call ended shortly. Then her mother called, throwing out words like, if you just dieted a bit, this would be resolved. Jennifer lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling. The rejection and pain of over 20 years weighed heavily on her heart. Late at night, she called Grandma Eleanor. After telling her everything, Eleanor's voice trembled with anger. "Don't mind what they say. You are a wonderful person, Jenny. Your kindness and compassion are worth more than any appearance. But I've been rejected by my family." "Real family doesn't hurt you," Eleanor said quietly. "You have choices." Jennifer pondered deeply. The years of suffering, the repeated rejections. That was enough. "I've decided," she suddenly said in a strong voice. "What?" Eleanor asked. "A surprise," Jennifer answered. "One they won't forget." One Friday evening, just under 2 months before the wedding, Jennifer's phone rang. Seeing the name displayed, she frowned. A call from her father was unusual. His voice was stiff and businesslike. "I want you to come to a family dinner tomorrow. It starts at 7. The tone was more of a command than an invitation, and Jennifer was momentarily at a loss for words. Since the conversation with Allison, she had barely been in contact with her parents. "Allison and Jason will be there. There's something important to discuss." After hanging up, Jennifer was filled with anxiety and confusion. Why was she suddenly being invited to a family gathering? Allison had just told her she didn't want her at the wedding. She called Grandma Eleanor. "Do you know about tomorrow's dinner?" "Yes," Eleanor's voice was tinged with worry. "I was invited too. I thought it seemed odd, especially when I heard they invited you. I wonder what they're planning." "Be careful, Jenny. But I'll be there too." The next evening, Jennifer headed to her parents' house with some apprehension. For today, she had specially fixed her hair and bought a new dress. Whatever was to come, she wanted to look her best. When she opened the front door, the family was already gathered in the dining room. Her father Robert, mother Martha, and Allison with Jason. Grandma Eleanor sat in a chair by the window, quietly smiling at her. "Jennifer, you've finally arrived," Martha said, looking at her watch. "Can't you even be on time?" "I'm sorry, there was traffic." Jennifer quietly took her seat. Across the table, Allison was giving her a cold look. However, Jason stood up and offered his hand to her. "Good evening, Jennifer. It's nice to see you again." His warm attitude was the only comfort in this tense atmosphere. Jennifer smiled back at him. He really did seem like a good person. She could understand why Allison had chosen to marry him. "Let's begin the meal," Robert said. "I've opened a special wine today. Jason's company has secured a new contract in Silicon Valley." "Congratulations, Jason," Jennifer said. "That's wonderful." Jason smiled modestly. "Thank you. Actually, it's a project using technology for children's education. If you're interested, I'd love to hear your professional opinions sometime." "I'd be delighted," a genuine smile appeared on Jennifer's face. Allison was clearly displeased listening to this conversation. She tightly gripped her wine glass and grabbed Jason's arm. "Honey, can't that talk wait? This is a family gathering." Jason looked a bit surprised but nodded. As the meal progressed, the conversation turned to Allison and Jason's wedding. The guest list, flower arrangements, and the special band they had hired. Jennifer listened silently, feeling the pain of her exclusion. At that moment, Jason suddenly stood up. "Excuse me, I need to take a phone call." As soon as he left the room, Allison turned to Jennifer. Her expression was filled with anger. "Why are you here?" she asked in a low voice. "I didn't say you could come." Jennifer's eyes widened in surprise. "Dad invited me." "I objected to it." Allison raised her voice. "This is a family gathering to discuss my wedding preparations. What's the point of you being here? You're not invited." Allison, her father said in a cautioning tone. Lower your voice. Jason might come back. I came because I'm family, Jennifer answered quietly. Is there a problem with that? Problem? Allison scoffed. You are the problem. Always. Her mother sighed and turned to Jennifer. Jenny, maybe you should reconsider what Allison is saying. She has her reasons. At these words, something broke inside Jennifer. Grandma Eleanor tried to reach out and place her hand on her shoulder, but Allison's next words froze the air. Let me be clear. I don't want people to think a fat woman like you is my family. It's embarrassing, so absolutely do not come to the wedding. The room fell silent for a moment. Tears welled up in Jennifer's eyes, and she desperately tried to hold them back. Allison. Eleanor raised an angry voice. How can you talk like that? However, her father tapped the table lightly and said to Eleanor, Mom, this is Allison's special day. We should respect her feelings. Her mother nodded. Do as your sister says, Jenny. You're ruining the family atmosphere. Jennifer looked around. Her parents, her sister. Surrounded by cold, judging looks, she felt completely isolated. Only Grandma Eleanor was watching the situation with eyes full of anger and sadness. I understand, Jennifer slowly stood up. She struggled to keep her voice from trembling. If I'm the family's shame, I won't come anymore. On her way to the door, she ran into Jason. He clearly noticed something was wrong and looked at her with concerned eyes. Are you all right? Did something happen? Jennifer tried to smile, but she couldn't stop the tears from streaming down her cheeks. It's nothing, Jason. I just shouldn't have been here. She hurried outside. It had started to rain. She got into her car, and before starting the engine, she gripped the steering wheel with both hands and broke down in tears. For a long time, she sat there, crying as she listened to the sound of the rain. Eventually, she calmed down and took out her cell phone. She called Grandma Eleanor. Jenny? Are you okay? Eleanor's worried voice came through. I left after you. That kind of treatment, it's unforgivable. I'm okay, Grandma. Jennifer's voice was stronger and more determined than before. I've had enough. I've been patient all this time, but it's over now. What do you mean? I'm going ahead with my surprise plan. They called me a fat woman and said I was shameful. But it's time to show them who should really be ashamed. On the other end of the phone, Eleanor was silent for a moment, then quietly said, I'll help you, Jenny. I'm on your side. As she drove away, a new determination was growing in Jennifer's heart. She would never be hurt by her family again. She knew her own worth. On the wedding day, the Grand Cathedral in Boston's suburbs was buzzing with activity from early morning. One luxury car after another arrived at the venue, which was lavishly decorated in white and silver. Celebrities, businesspeople, and even media personnel gathered. The marriage of the Wilson and Bradley families was the most talked about event in the local social circle. In the church's private room, Allison was making her final preparations. Her pure white wedding dress was custom-made, fitting perfectly to her slim body, with a bold open back and a long train that accentuated her elegance. Perfect, Allison, Martha said, circling her daughter. You'll be the most beautiful bride today. Allison smiled in front of the mirror. Thank you for preparing such a wonderful wedding. All my dreams are coming true. Of course, Robert said proudly. You're our daughter. The three silently understood that this "our daughter" phrase excluded Jennifer. But no one mentioned it. Meanwhile, Eleanor sat a little distance away, quietly observing the scene. Her expression was unreadable, but there was a glint in her eyes as if hiding a secret. It's about to start, Martha said, looking at her watch. All the guests seem to have arrived. Eleanor stood up and smiled slightly. I'll take my seat too. Allison, you're beautiful. After she left, Allison seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. Grandma's been strange lately. I was worried she might be planning something with Jennifer, but it seems like nothing's happening. Don't worry, Martha placed her hand on her daughter's shoulder. Today is your day. No one will interfere. The ceremony began, and as the cathedral's pipe organ played solemn music, the guests took their seats. Jason was already standing in front of the altar, nervously looking towards the door. His parents sat in the front row, watching their son with proud faces. The wedding is proceeding smoothly, Martha whispered to her husband. No problems at all. But at this moment, she still didn't know about the surprise that would happen on this day. As solemn music played, Allison began walking down the aisle, supported by her father's arm. A happy smile adorned her face, and the guests let out sighs of admiration. Allison was the perfect, flawless bride. Allison stood next to Jason, and the priest began the ceremony. Words about love, respect, and the importance of supporting each other echoed solemnly through the church. If anyone objects to this marriage, speak now or forever hold your peace. After this traditional question from the priest, a moment of silence fell. Allison had a relieved expression and tightly held Jason's hand. It seemed that surprise she had feared most hadn't happened. But the next moment, the doors at the back of the cathedral opened with a sound. All eyes turned toward the door. Standing there was a woman unlike any they had seen before. Dressed in an elegant green dress, with perfect makeup and hairstyle, she began walking down the central aisle with confident steps. The venue buzzed, and Allison frowned. But as the woman drew closer, Allison's expression froze. It was Jennifer. However, she looked completely different from the Jennifer the family had known. She had lost weight, and with her sophisticated attire and confident demeanor, she looked like a different person. The guests in the venue held their breath at her beauty, all wondering who she was and why she was there. "Excuse me," Jennifer said in a quiet but powerful voice. She walked down the center aisle and stopped in front of the altar. "I object to this marriage." The venue rumbled. Allison's face turned red, and her parents half rose from their seats. But Jennifer didn't flinch. She slowly took out her cell phone. "My sister called me a fat woman and told me, don't come to the wedding because it's embarrassing. My parents supported her. I want you all to hear their words." She pressed a button on her phone. Allison's voice echoed throughout the cathedral. "I don't want people to think a fat woman like you is my family. It's embarrassing, so absolutely do not come to the wedding." Then came the voices of Robert and Martha. "This is Allison's special day. We should respect her feelings. Do as your sister says." When the recording ended, the venue was completely silent. Jason's expression hardened, and he stared at his fiancée. Allison was dumbfounded. Her parents sank into their seats, trying to avoid the gazes of the surrounding guests. "I did lose weight," Jennifer said quietly. "But I did it for myself. What I wanted to show you all is that it's not my body that's ugly, but this family's heart." For a moment, she met Jason's eyes at the altar. His expression showed shock but also something else, a kind of understanding. "That's all I wanted to say. That love is not about appearance, but the beauty of the heart. Be happy." As Jennifer began to walk back down the aisle, Jason suddenly spoke up. "Wait." He let go of Allison's hand and stepped forward. His expression was filled with determination. "I don't want to be connected to such a family." Gasps of surprise rose from the venue. Jason slowly turned to Allison, trying to return the engagement ring to her hand. "What do you mean, Jason?" Allison's voice was trembling. "You believe what she says. Don't you love me?" "I did," Jason said quietly. "But what I just heard, it goes against my values. I believe true beauty lies in the heart. And now, I feel like I've seen your heart." Allison broke down in tears, and her parents rushed to her side. But Jason had already made up his mind. He slowly began walking down the center aisle, and when he passed near Jennifer, he gave her a small nod. It was an expression of gratitude and respect. The venue fell into chaos, with guests voicing their surprise. Only Eleanor was quietly smiling as she approached her granddaughter. "Well done, Jenny," she took her granddaughter's hand. "It takes courage to speak the truth, but you had it." Jennifer and Eleanor, shoulder to shoulder, left the cathedral. 6 months later, Boston was embraced in the beautiful attire of autumn. Jennifer sat by the window of her grandmother Eleanor's house in Cambridge, drinking coffee and admiring the fall foliage outside. Since the wedding incident, her life had changed dramatically. "How was the new child?" Eleanor asked, entering the living room. Jennifer smiled. "She's a very brave girl. It went well for a first session." A month after the wedding, Jennifer had decided to move in with her grandmother and relocated to Cambridge. She had then opened her own clinic. Her reputation as a child psychologist quickly spread, and now her appointments were booked months in advance. "Jason called this evening," Eleanor said. "He wants to see you." Jennifer nodded. She had been keeping in touch with Jason as friends. After breaking off his engagement with Allison, he had moved to San Francisco and started a new project developing applications for children's education. He occasionally sought Jennifer's professional opinion on that project. "Remember what he said when we last met?" Jennifer asked her grandmother. "He said, 'Thank you for showing me the truth.'" Eleanor smiled gently. "He's a good person. He made the right choice that day." In contrast, Allison's life had taken a downward spiral. The events at the wedding spread rapidly through the social circle, and her reputation was ruined. A storm of criticism raged on social media, and she was fired from the advertising company where she worked. The last they heard, she had moved to Los Angeles and was living away from the public eye. It was the same for her parents, Robert and Martha. Wilson Properties' reputation was significantly damaged, and the social standing they had built over years was shaken. They were criticized by relatives, especially Eleanor's brothers, who strongly condemned their actions. Last month, Jennifer received a letter from Allison. It contained words of apology and a request for reconciliation, but she hadn't replied. Similar contact came from her parents, but she had only sent a brief response: "I forgive, but I won't forget." "Come on, we need to finish packing," Eleanor said, standing up. "Tomorrow morning is early." The two had planned a 2-week vacation to Italy starting the next day. They were going to visit Tuscany, Eleanor's homeland, and meet her distant relatives. "I'm really grateful, Grandma," Jennifer suddenly said. "Without you, I might still be in that suffering." Eleanor took her granddaughter's hand. "Finding your own worth was your own strength, Jenny. I just reminded you of it." She put her arm around Jennifer's shoulders, and they gazed at the beautiful autumn scenery visible from the window. "Life is short," Eleanor said quietly. "You should spend it with those who cherish you. We have our future ahead, Jenny." Jennifer smiled. She was no longer bound by the pain of the past. Now, a bright future lay ahead of her. A new life with her true family.